Okay, welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're turning our attention to a nation that, well, started with some incredibly tough environmental odds stacked against it, especially when it comes to water.
Hmm.
But the material we've been looking at shows a transformation that is, frankly, pretty remarkable.
That's right. We've got a stack of notes and excerpts here, and they really tell the story of Eritrea's journey. A country, in the Sahelian belt, known for arid conditions, recurrent droughts.
A tough place for water.
Exactly. So our mission here is to really get into these sources, understand how this change actually happened, pull out the surprising details, and see what lessons it holds for sustainable development, especially around something as basic as water.
And to even grasp the scale of this transformation, we
Mm,
really have to understand the starting line, right? Eritrea's geography is just inherently challenging.
definitely.
It's arid, semi-arid, and it's faced decades of severe droughts. Finding reliable water here isn't just difficult, it's like a constant struggle.
It is. The geography shapes everything. You've got these five major river basin systems: the Sedet, Merebgash, Red Sea Basin, Barka Ansabas, and the Danakilba.
Okay.
Now, they provide a potential runoff of about, 9,967 million cubic meters annually, roughly.
That sounds like a lot of water, potentially.
It does, but that number is a bit misleading when you look at where the water actually goes.
Ah, okay. How so?
Well, a huge chunk of that surface water isn't easily captured for use within the country. The notes point out only about 422 million cubic meters stays inland, in basins and depressions.
Right.
A much larger amount, over 930, flows east towards the Red Sea. And then a massive 8,613 million cubic meters flows west, often out of easy reach for domestic needs.
So a lot of that potential just flows away, basically.
Pretty much. It means much of that theoretical surface water is just hard to put to work inside Eritrea. And while groundwater is seen as the most reliable source, its volume is also limited. So you're starting with natural scarcity, really unpredictable rainfall, and this constant threat of drought.
And then you layer on top of that the increasing human and environmental pressures, things like overexploitation of the sources they do have, deforestation impacting the watersheds.
Minimal recharge practices, yeah. Practices
Yeah.
that don't help water seep back into the ground naturally.
Right.
And of course, the undeniable and, growing impact of climate change just makes all of it that much harder. So you've got this really precarious situation right from the get-go.
Which immediately tells you why water isn't just important in Eritrea. It's absolutely foundational to, well, everything.
Precisely. The material makes a very strong case that the water sector isn't just crucial, it's pivotal for their sustainable development goals.
Pivotal how, exactly?
Yeah.
What specific areas does it impact, according to these sources?
Well, it's tied directly to economic growth, poverty reduction, and crucially, food security, which is huge in a drought-prone region like that.
Makes sense.
It's also essential for environmental conservation. And beyond those basic needs, it supports things like industrial modernization, even tourism. It truly is the lifeblood for the whole system.
Okay, so recognizing this fundamental link, how did they actually start to tackle this massive challenge? It clearly wasn't just waiting for rain.
Definitely not. No, this is where the strategic part really comes in. The government, through the Ministry of Land, Water, and Environment, seems to have put a comprehensive framework in place.
A framework, you mean like policies and laws?
Exactly. Documents like Eritrea's water policy, the water law, the institutional framework, and the water sector for human development plan.
Right.
And these were first drafted surprisingly early, actually, back in 1997, and then revised in 2007. So it shows it was a sustained, evolving effort, not just a one-off thing.
And what was the core idea behind these policies? What were they aiming for?
The central principle driving it all was Integrated Water Resources Management, or IWRM.
IWRM, okay.
And a key piece of their IWRM, which the sources really highlight, was inclusivity, getting everyone involved across different population groups, different economic sectors, in how water is used, planned for, and developed. It wasn't just a top-down decision.
That makes so much sense, doesn't it? If water is this shared, vital, and limited resource, everyone needs a stake and a voice in managing it. And this strategic policy groundwork, combined with actual investment,
Right.
it seems like that led to the really transformative numbers we saw in the sources.
This is where the story gets incredibly compelling, yeah. Thanks to these policies, targeted investments, and just sustained development efforts, access to clean and safe water has seen this dramatic leap. The national headline statistic is just astounding.
Okay, hit me with it.
From just 13% national access back in 1991,
13.
yeah, 13%, to around 85% today.
Wow. Just, wow. 13% to 85%. In just a few decades, starting from that incredibly difficult place. And it's not just a jump. That's a fundamental reshaping of daily life for millions.
It really is. And what stands out is that this wasn't just about improving access in the easiest places.
Right.
The material explicitly connects this progress to a commitment to equity and social justice, specifically aiming to bridge that rural-urban divide. They talk about leaving no one behind.
And did the numbers actually reflect that focus on equity? Did they manage to bridge that divide?
Absolutely. I mean, urban access went from a low 30% at independence to over 92%, which is great progress, obviously.
Yeah.
But look at the rural figures. Starting at a mere 7%.
7%.
7%.
Yeah.
It expanded to nearly 80%. That leap from 7% coverage is genuinely striking. It really shows where a lot of the effort must have been focused.
That rural improvement is incredible. It shows they were tackling the hardest challenges head on. And it wasn't just individual homes getting connected, right? Access improved in public spaces too.
Yes, definitely. The progress extended significantly to public institutions. Over 50% of schools nationwide now have water access.
Which is critical.
Huge for hygiene, learning environments. And water access in health facilities also advanced considerably.
And the sources draw a direct line, don't they? From water access in health facilities to actual health outcomes. Yeah. Better hygiene, safer childbirth, reduced neonatal mortality. It just underscores how water infrastructure is public health infrastructure.
It's absolutely fundamental. Now, achieving this kind of widespread access, especially in that kind of climate, requires more than just policy. It requires massive physical infrastructure.
Right. And the sources highlight that. Talk about large-scale development of water infrastructure being a cornerstone strategy.
The numbers here are also quite telling. The number of dams and ponds, for instance, grew from just 138 at independence to nearly 800 today.
Whoa. 138 to almost 800.
Yeah, that's not just adding a few here and there. That's a systematic effort to significantly boost the national water storage and distribution capacity.
That shows incredible scale and commitment. And it's not like this effort stopped years ago, is it? The material mentions recent and future plans, too.
Exactly right. In 2023, 16 microdams were completed or slated for completion, and another 17 are scheduled for 2024-25. So it indicates the sustained, long-term commitment to building resilience. It's ongoing.
And while this feels like a huge national effort, do the sources mention any external support playing a role, partnerships or anything?
Yeah. They do, yeah. Cooperation with international development organizations is noted as playing a key role.
Okay.
These partnerships apparently provided crucial technical expertise, funding support, and capacity building.
Which helps amplify the national efforts, I imagine, enabling them to implement sustainable projects and maybe scale these solutions nationwide more effectively than they could totally alone.
Right, exactly. So looking ahead, the sources are clear. Despite these huge achievements, the country remains focused on further strengthening water security. The job isn't finished.
And I'm guessing one of the biggest ongoing challenges they're focusing on is agriculture, since that usually consumes the most fresh water everywhere.
You got it. Agriculture is highlighted as the biggest user, by far. So future efforts are really focused on improving water use efficiency in that sector.
Wow.
Through things like modern irrigation methods, conservation technologies, and knowledge development, spreading awareness and skills.
Makes sense.
There's even a specific mention of gradually shifting away from traditional furrow irrigation, the open channels where you lose a lot of water, to evaporation and runoff, towards more efficient pressurized irrigation systems like drip or sprinklers.
And beyond farming, just keeping the tap water flowing reliably probably involves updating the pipes and delivery system too.
Yes, exactly. Replacing outdated pipelines and installing new ones is also part of the plan to extend reliable access further. And, importantly, in parallel with all this infrastructure work, there's an emphasis on environmental sustainability.
Oh, yeah.
Taking proactive steps to protect the ecosystems that rely on fresh water, acknowledging how interconnected our human water needs are with the natural systems that provide it.
So if we try to sort of distill the core message from all this material we've looked at, what's the big takeaway about Eritrea's experience here?
It really paints water as much more than just a resource or a commodity. It's presented as a fundamental lifeline and a powerful catalyst for transformation. Eritrea's approach comes across as this comprehensive and inclusive model for managing such a vital resource.
And it serves as quite a powerful example, doesn't it? Showing how even nations facing really significant resource constraints and tough environmental challenges can make truly remarkable progress.
Absolutely. The driving factors highlighted seem to be, well, a strong vision, sustained commitment over decades, and collective action involving the government, communities, and those international partners we mentioned.
Right.
And as the global community works towards big goals like the 2030 SDGs, Eritrea's experience, it offers tangible lessons, I think.
Lessons about the importance of integrated solutions, yeah. Not just focusing on one piece, but looking at the whole picture policy, infrastructure, community buy-in, and environmental protection,
Mhm.
and the necessity of long-term planning to build resilience, especially with climate change, making things even less predictable.
Exactly. It really underscores that securing a water-secure future requires a holistic and, crucially, an enduring effort.
It really is quite a transformation story, though, isn't it? Going from just 13% access to 85% nationwide, bringing water to schools and health clinics, building hundreds of dams, all in a region constantly battling drought.
Yeah.
And learning about journeys like this, I think it's valuable for you, the listener, because it truly shows what's possible even when the challenges seem immense. It highlights that interconnectedness, how the availability of a resource is so deeply linked to smart policy, infrastructure investment, community involvement, and ultimately just basic human well-being.
Indeed. And considering the sources specifically highlight agriculture as the biggest water consumer and also state that protecting ecosystems is a central pillar moving forward.
Well,
It raises a really important question to maybe mull over. What do you believe is the biggest challenge for Eritrea, or really for any nation facing water scarcity in truly balancing those necessary human needs for water, especially for something as fundamental as food production, with the equally necessary goal of protecting the natural systems that provide that water in the first place? How do you strike that balance?